So let us continue with the array questions, more array questions. So let us continue with let's take this question, October, November 2016, P22. A social club runs a weekly draw. A member can buy tickets for $2. Each week, the club sells up to 150 tickets with consecutive members starting from 1. There is a main cash prize of $120 and further three prizes of $10. The computer program will generate the winning number. Throughout this question, you will need to refer to the list of codes. The organizers do not want the same number to be drawn more than once in a week. To deal with the issue of duplicate numbers being generated, the program in part B will require adaptive maintenance. D2, the club does not want the program to output the same number more than once in a week. For each winning number, outline the extra step that the program must have. Include any data structure that the program needs. Do not write pseudocode for it. All right, so basically, we would have to have a flag in it. In this particular question, and we would have to generate a random number, and we will first check that if random number already exists at that location. If yes, then we generate another number, and we will use the flag again, and until the flag goes false, we will keep regenerating numbers. All right, so this particular question is not about array indirect, it is about random number generation. And at any location when you are required to generate unique numbers, you would have to make use of random function. And then whatever the location that is generated, you would have to first check that if that location already has that number. And if it is about the value, the element of the array, then you would have to actually generate an element and then you would have to search the whole array. In this case, when you would like to have different values, unique values in one single dimensional array, every time you generate a value, you would have to actually scan through the whole array for the existence of that value. If it is already there, then you would generate another. So that is how you will actually use random function to generate different values for the array. Now 5, a team keeps a record of the scores made by each of their 8 players in the number of games. The data in two tables below show the scores of the 8 players after 20 games. So this rows is showing 20 games and this column is showing players. So it means that player 2 in game 3 had 39 score and player 3 in game 19 had 81 score. That is how we will read it. And then we have another array, single dimensional array, which is basically the names of the players. The team wants a computer program to generate, to input and record player data. A programmer designs the following pseudocode for the input of the player's score from one game. Input game number, input player number, input player game score, and then player score, game number, player number is equal to player game score. Describe the data structure that we are using over here. We are using 2D array, and this is 2D array, and for all players score, and that array is of integer data type. integer array, and the name of the array is this player score. Okay, so that is what they want you describe the data structure in the programmer's structure the programmer has used for the storage. So you would have to tell that this is the array which is 2D array, and it has got integer data type, and then the name is this. Beyond this, I don't think they will be requiring anything else. Now, there is another question from May-June 2016, P23. It requires you to use this array lookup and to perform tasks. The steps involved in decryption are as follows. Search the character in the array. Search the character in the array. Okay, note the index value where the character is found. The index value in ASCII is the ASCII to ASCII value of the original character. Okay, use this index value to obtain the original character. Okay, so you would have one character for which we will search the whole array. Once we find the array, the index value will be the ASCII value of the original character. We will use that ASCII value and we will return the character related to that array. Okay, a program needs to be written to output the part of the lookup array. The design of the algorithm is shown below. It may be assumed that the character output from lookup are all printable. Okay, G. This is a function called decrypt. Okay, so what is basically happening? The function is decrypt function. Okay, so accept two parameters, cipher character and 1D array lookup. Cipher character and 1D array lookup. Okay, so it says input start index and input number to output. Then index is equal to start index and increment index. Most probably this is for next loop. For index is equal to start index to number to output. All right. Now, this is basically a function. Name the function decrypt. It receives what? Cipher character and 1D array lookup. Cipher character and lookup, and returns a character. Okay, now for index is equal to start index to number to output, and then we would have to find the original character. Produce original character from the index, use built-in function. The function is chr original character is equal to character of the index assign current array element to cipher character. So cipher character is equal to assign current array element to cipher characters. So cipher character is equal to the name of the array is lookup, we better use large brackets, cipher character, and then output message line, output message line for example for input 65 and 3, the output will be index 65 character A has substituted character Y. Okay, now output index index merged with index character and original character character has substituted character Y, character plus cipher character. You better write everything in the same line, and then next. Now there is one thing that needs your attention. This start index, let's say if we have got 1 2 3 4 5 1 2 3 4 5 6, it says that the start index is 3 and we have to output 3 numbers. So number to output is 3. So that will be number to output plus, let's say then we will be requiring what, 3, 4 and 5. Okay, so start index to number to output plus start index. So they might ask you whatever. So let's say start index is 3, they want to output 3. So 3, 4 and then 5. And then the whole thing minus 1. Because start index is 3, the number to output is 3, that becomes 6. But originally we will have to output 3, 4, 5. So minus 1 will be used. Okay, so number to output is 3, and then start index is 3, that becomes 6. So every time you write a pseudocode, always pay attention to the details. So what we need to return, we need to return what? Original characters or what? So I think I have read it proper. A program is to be written. Steps involved in decryption is this. A program is to be written to output the part of the lookup array. The design of the algorithm is shown below. It may be assumed that the character output from all printable. So these might be two different parts. So this is basically a part of the function. So we don't have to actually use the function thing here. All we need is just this part. Okay. Actually picking up only the parts which are required is basically tough, and sometimes it backfires. So it is always a good idea to solve the whole question. So it would be better for you, since you have got an idea of this question now. These are two questions from P21, 22 and 23. They are related question for encryption and decryption. It would be better that you basically solve it yourself. Now, this is another question which is May-June 2015 P23. May-June 2015 P23. So it says a firm employs workers who assemble amplifiers. Each member of staff works an agreed number of hours each day. The firm records the number of completed amplifiers made by each employee each day. Management monitors the performance of all its workers. Production data was collected for 3 workers over 4 days. A program is to be written to process the production data. The production data is to be stored in two-dimensional array production data declared as follows: rows 1 to 4 and column 1 to 3 of integer data type. Describe two features of the array. All right, so one is um, it is found in consecutive memory locations. Uh, it is found in consecutive memory locations. Static in nature. Static means it cannot grow or shrink while the program is being executed. It has all elements of same type. All right, and there might be other things like a row and column index is used to access things like that. Give the value of production 3 comma 2. So 3 comma 2 will be this. This is column 3, sorry, row 3, column 2, 24. So that would be 24. And then it says that describe the information produced by the expression. Production 2 comma 1. 2 comma 1 is this 11 plus 2 comma 2 16 plus 2 comma 3 is 11. So that will be describe the information produced by the expression. Basically, this is the total number of amplifiers produced in day 2 by 3 workers. All right. So this is the total number of amplifiers produced by, which is basically 38, but this is the total number of amplifiers produced on day 2 by 3 workers. That is how you will have to actually read it. Remember, they have not asked for the answer, they asked for the information produced by the description of the information produced by this. All right. Now, this question is related. Sheena wants to develop a program to keep details of the books she has read. One way of storing this data will be to use records. So this is record data type. Each record will contain the fields shown in the table below. Okay. So this is October, November 2015 P22. Sheena declares an array of records to store the book data. In the beginning, the array elements will not contain book data. Explain how the array should be initialized. Now, basically, we will run the loop. First of all, you need to understand that this is not basically a data type which is primitive. Rather, it is a data type which is user-defined type. So how we will basically make it? Record, and the name of the record is book record type. And then we would have title, declare. I'm using short wordings, but don't do that in exam. Title as a string, declare author as a string, and that goes until declare rating as integer, and then end record. And then you can always create an array out of this particular data type. So they say that at the beginning, the array elements will contain book data. Explain how the array should be initialized. Now, you may have several ways, and the best way would be to run a loop. They have actually asked you to explain it. You have to write. First, let's discuss about run a loop from 1 to 100. Then you would have to write the name of the array book I dot title is equal to null book I dot author is equal to null, and that goes until book I dot rating is equal to 0 and next. This is the way we can do it. So what you need to write is that we will run a loop 100 times, okay, and then in every loop every element of the book record type array will be initialized to what is required at the start of the program. Okay, and there might be other ways. Other teachers might uh, tell you different things. It is also possible that we create a variable and we, for example, let's say x, declare x as book record type, and then we basically x dot title is equal to null, x dot author is equal to null, and then instead of all this, once the whole x is initialized, we can assign this x to every book. So book I is equal to x. So this way you can assign the whole record to the whole array element. So the best thing is to use this. This basically I have never used, I have never seen. Secondly, if it is presented in the form of the code as I have described it in the form of the code, then it is also acceptable. I think they won't disregard it. All right. So then question E, it says Sheena has entered some more book records data. Write pseudocode to save the array record to the to the file bookdata.dat. Only those array elements containing book data should be saved to the file. Now this is filing question, so we actually ignore it at the moment, but do mind it that from array to filing and filing to array is inevitable. It can always show. Then G part, when we will do filing, we will get back to such questions and we will try solving all those questions which are related to arrays, especially two-dimensional arrays or the arrays of UDTs. To file, we will look into it. Sheena wants to know the title of her favorite book. She plans to write code to search the array book. Write pseudocode. Write pseudocode to output the title of the book with the highest ratings. For now, assume that only one book in the array has the highest rating. There may be more than one book with the highest rating. I want to output all the titles that have this rating. The pseudocode will need to be changed. Describe the changes that you will be requiring. Okay. So this is part G. Basically, what you would have to do, you will have to have one variable, let's say highest rating, and you would have to initialize it at 0. And then you would have one index variable, and then we will run the index from 1 to 100. And then we will be checking if book I dot rating is greater than highest, then update highest. Highest is equal to book I dot rating. All right, and it says Write a pseudocode. Sheena wants to know the title of the favorite book. She plans to write the code to search the book title. Write pseudocode to output the title of the book with the highest rating. For now, assume that the only book in the book array has the highest rating. So we would have to have another variable book name, and we will initialize it to null. And then book name is equal to book I dot title, and then end if, and then next. Now what will happen? This loop will work whatever the highest rating that we will encounter. As this said that there will be only one book with the highest rating. Okay, so there will be one book with the highest rating. So once you get out, the highest book rating will be in the highest variable, and the book name will be in the title of the book will be in the book name. All right. So then we output name of the book with highest rating is comma book name. All right. So this is the code that we need to require. Okay. This is the code that we require to show the name of the book with the highest rating. All right. Now, second part is there may be more than one book with the highest rating. Sheena wants to output all the titles that have this rating. The pseudocode will need to be changed. Describe the changes you will need to make. All right. So once we get out, so in that case, we will not have to write this line basically. All we will be requiring to know the highest rating. Okay, once we get out of it, basically what will happen that we have to run another loop. We will have to run another loop that will be for I is equal to 1 to 100, and then we will have to write that if book I dot rating is equal to highest. Since we would have highest rating already in our hand from the previous loop, then output the name of the book with the highest rating is this, then end if, and then next. So what will basically happen in the first loop, we will determine the highest rating. Once we are out of the loop, we will have this variable updated with the highest rating. We will not be requiring this now. And then when we get out, we will run the loop again from the first element of the array to the last, and all the books having rating which is equivalent to the highest book. Since they say that there might be several books with the highest rating, there might be more than one books with the highest rating. Sheena wants to output all the titles that have the same rating. So we will be using the title of that array element. So comma book I dot title. So what will happen that every single book's rating will be checked. If it is equal to the highest book rating, then the name of the book with the highest rating, the title of the same array element will be output. So that is how it will work. All right. So now let's take another question. Now, this is basically October, November 2015 P21. All right. So they say that Ravi decides to store course data in the array course. The array will consist of 50 records. Whenever array consists of 50 records, it means that this is basically the record data type. So you would have to run a loop that will go, let's say, uh, 50 times, and in every loop this array will be, every element of the array will be initialized. The name of the array, they say that should be course. So let's say declare course as array which goes from 1 to 50 of course. What was the name? So the name of the array is not mentioned, it would be in the first part. So let's just name it ourselves, course data type. All right. Now for I is equal to 1 to 50, and then we would have to write course I dot course code is equal to null course I dot title is equal to null, and this goes until what? Course I dot date is equal to, let's say, I told you that date is not initialized basically, and if you require to initialize it, we initialize it to the current value. So let's say today's date is 3/7/21, and then next time. So this is what they wanted you to do, and for that they were eager to give you 6 marks. So this is basically, this might become basically complex for you if you have not proper, if you don't have proper understanding of the record data type. You see, questions do appear for record data type, and it will actually trouble you if you don't get those questions properly. Now, I would suggest that instead of solving this just picked up parts of the questions, rather try finding these questions in the past paper and solve them as a whole. So that will be a better package for preparation rather than picking up parts and solving them. So this is May, June 2015 P23. It says that Ali has designed a board game. The board consists of numbered squares, slides and ladders. Connect some of the squares. An example of the board is this. The object of the game is for a player to move from the bottom square, which is square 1 in here, and to go to the top, which is 26. A roll of 6 sides die determines how many squares the player moves. The table below shows example of the moves. If it is at 2, it goes to 6, it remains at 6. But if it goes to 3, it will climb up to 19. So if it goes to 2, all right, so it is there. Current position is so from 2 it goes to 6. Okay, so from 2 it goes to 6. So it remains at 6, but if it goes to 7, it will climb up to 19. All right, and if it goes to 10, it will slide back to 3. So if it goes to 10, then it will slide back to 3. Okay. Now, Ali plans to write a program to test different board designs. Each board design will have different numbers, positions, and length for the slide and letters. The program is to test each board design to check that it is possible to complete the game in a reasonable number of moves. For each board design, the program will simulate playing the game 1,000 times and report the average number of moves. So it will go on for 1,000 times. Ali decides to store the board game in one-dimensional array board, and each array element represents one square of the board over here. If the square is the start of a slide or ladder, the array element will store the position where the slide or ladder ends. So if it is at 1, it remains where it is for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But if it reaches 7, then it will slide up to 19, and if it reaches 3, then it will slide. If it reaches at 10, it will slide down to 3. Similarly, if it reaches 28, then it will slide down to 12. Okay. Now, state the value Ali should use for the array element that do not contain the start of a slide or ladder. Since we can see the data that is being saved is integer, then obviously it will be an integer. So it will be the value as per the index. So if it is at 1, it remains at 1. If it is at 2, it remains at 2. If it is at 3, then it remains at 3. If it is at 4, then remains at 4. If it is at 5, then remains at 5. If it is at 6, then remains at 6. So initially, before updating the array for the letters and slides, it will be a good idea to initialize every element of the array from 1 to 30 to its index. All right. In the high-level language, write statements to declare array board. In the high-level language of your choice, in part B, to write pseudo statements to initialize the array board before there are any slides or letters added. So you need to understand that this language thing is now ended. You would have questions for only pseudocodes. So let's first declare the array, declare board 1 to 30 of integer, then initialize the array for I is equal to 1 to 30, and then board I is equal to I itself, then next. You get the idea? So every element of the array will be initialized to its own index. All right. So we have declared the array. We have told them that state the value that Ali should use for the array elements to do that do not contain the start or slide. The state value that Ali should use. So that value should be the index itself. And then they ask us to declare the array and then write the statements to initialize the array. We wrote these statements to initialize the array. Okay, or that's it. That's it. Okay. Now, so you see this grid. This is grid of 3 by 3. This is cross and knots game. What you see in it, you need to be very much careful about it. People say that we see knots and crosses. I would ask then what is the type of this data which is in the grid? People say Boolean because this is the game which is cross and knots, and there are only two possibilities, either the user puts cross or not. But the thing is, if it is Boolean value, then Boolean is initialized at false. So that means if it was Boolean value, then all the blanks would have been already filled by false. So this is not Boolean. This is actually either the string or the character. Why? Because only the string and the characters are initialized at null. So these values are either a character or the string. Why? Because we don't see just two values, we also see these values which are null. So we do have to, being programmer, we do have to consider what's there where we don't see anything. It means it is null there. So this is basically character data type. Why character? Because whatever the data that we see is basically built up of just one character. So it means it is basically what we are looking at is three characters: crosses, knots, and nulls. Because character is initialized at null. Okay, so mind it. Let's see the question. So this is 2015 May June 2122. A board game is designed for two players. Knot and cross. At the beginning, all cells of 3 by 3 grid are empty. So they say that this is empty. It is empty does not mean anything but empty. So that is null. The player takes turn in placing their marker in an empty cell of the grid. Player not always starts. The game ends when one player completes a row, column, or diagonal, or the grid is full. Here is one example of the three terms. Ali wants to write a program to play the game. The array grid is to be used to represent the content of the grid. Rows and columns are to be numbered 1, 2, 3. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. To take their turn, the player inputs a row number and a column number to place their marker in an empty cell. Write the values player X has input to place their marker X. So it is 1, 2, 3, and it is 1, 2, 3. So they have marked it as 2, 3. Board 2, 3 is equal to X. This is what they would have actually written in order to move this X to this position, row and then column. Row is 2, column is 3. State the value Ali could use to represent an empty cell. It's a null value. In high-level language programming, write statements to declare array grid. So we are not going to actually use high-level language. Wherever you see high-level language program, you better understand it in pseudocode. Okay, so declare grid as array 3 comma 3, sorry, this is two-dimensional array, 1 comma 3 for rows and 1 comma 3 for columns of character. Assign the value of an empty cell to all cells. So for row is equal to 1, 2, 3. For column is equal to 1, 2, 3. And then grid row comma column is equal to null. Next column and next row. That is how we will actually initialize all the elements. Okay. Now, let's take another question. More or less same type of question. October, November 2014, P11 and sorry, P2. P2. It says that a game is being played by two players. Player A uses white tokens, player B uses black tokens. The player takes turn dropping tokens into the vertical grid. The token falls straight down and occupy the next available space in the chosen column. The aim of the game is to connect 4 of one's own color tokens. This must be done in vertical, horizontal, or diagonal line. Here is an example. After player A has had 2 turns and player B has had 1. Nathan wants to write program to allow user to play the game on the computer. Before any tokens have been dropped into the grid, all grid cells are empty. Suggest value Nathan used to represent empty cell. So empty cell might be, in this case, null. White token, let's say W, and black token, let's say B. The array grid is to be used to represent contents of the game grid. In high-level language programming, write statements to declare the grid array. You can now do that easily. Declare grid colon array. First, we have to define rows 1 colon 6 comma 1 colon 7 of character. All right. Assign the value of an empty cell to all cells. For row is equal to 1 to 6. For column is equal to 1 to 7. And then we have to put grid row comma column is equal to null. Write the statement to assign the value for a black token to the cell shown in the diagram. So grid 2 comma 4 is equal to B. B should be in single quotation. All right. So remember, such easy question will give you so many marks. All right. So as I suggested, we can go on with such questions as much as you like. They will be changing shapes, but they will be making use of arrays. So you see, I told you in my last class that arrays questions will not only be limited to the operations of the array, the sole purpose of the question will be something else, and to implement that purpose, they will be utilizing array. So the question, unlike O level, will not be knitted around just the array, it will be knitted around a scenario, and that might be a scenario like this question, a complicated one as it was here, And as I suggested, that you should go to these questions, to find these questions over internet, the paper, and do solve these questions as a whole. You see, we are only solving a few parts which are related to array, but I can foresee that all these parts will be related to array, since the purpose will be different. That is why we have not included those parts. For example, this question A does not basically, it was just put to know the background of the question, but our main concern was just question C. So it is a good idea to find all those questions which are in this topical in the past paper and solve them as a whole. Okay, so you see, questions related to array are not knitted around arrays, rather they are knitted around more complicated issues, and the arrays are being used. And for those arrays which are not actually two-dimensional, rather they are single-dimensional and written around the record data type or user-defined data type, might be difficult for you to handle. So it is a good idea that you solve as many questions possible. Okay, you would have questions for tracing, you would have questions for writing programs, you would have questions for understanding and suggesting improvements of their given programs, whatever it is. You see, you will have to deal with arrays in any way. Arrays are the bloodlines of the source codes, pseudocodes, program codes, and they are always there in one form or other. Okay, so array require you to be very good with them. Okay, and it is always necessary to be prepared with arrays. You see, when you will move on to next year, paper 4, whatever that you are learning in P2 will become a foundation, because that is how we program. If we are programming for something more complex, more advanced, even then the base that you would have built already with P2 will be used. Okay, so let's see what's next after arrays. Okay, now we have seen single dimensional array, two dimensional array, their declaration, their accessing, their initialization, populate. Now we are going to solve two of the algorithms. One is searching, the other one is bubble sort. Bubble sort mostly show up with the single dimensional array, and searching will be for one or two dimension arrays. So let's do that. Now, if you like to search an array, you have to have two things properly understood. Okay, I'll talk about hashing. I'll talk about hashing when we will do before I'll talk about hashing. Now, searching an array require you to have basically a flag. A flag is a variable which is mostly Boolean type, with that we set at the start to one value, mostly the false. That false value is basically updated during the processing, and towards the end we check that if it remains false or it has been changed during the processing. For example, if we are looking for one array element and that array element is not found, the false will remain false till the end, and at the end of the program we will look into it. If that found Boolean variable has turned true, then it is found and it is already outputted. But if it is still false, then we will output whether we will output that it is not found. So first of all, what you need to understand is, let's say we have an array and it has got values A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Obviously this array, let's call it char array. This is char array, this is single dimensional array, and it is of character data type with 7 elements in it. Now we want to search for a character in it. So first of all, we have to input search character. All right, and then we would like to have or before it we would like to have a flag is found. This is up to you, whatever the name that you like it to be. Let's make it false. So this is a flag that will determine towards the end if the value that was required is found or not. Searching an array directly will not be possible. There are different algorithms for it, and those algorithms will be discussed in P4, like hashing and all. We are going to search this array simply. So this is called serial search or linear search or simply simple search. Okay, now what we will do, we will go for a loop for I is equal to 1 to what is upper bound 7, and then we check if char array I is equal to search character. If it is, then we will output found at location I, and we will make this is found flag true. We will make this is found flag true, and if and next. Now towards the end, we can think if the value would have already been found, and if it was, then the output would have already been given on the screen. If it is not, then we would have to tell our user that value could not be found. So we only look for if is found is equal to false, means we actually made it false, and the value that we were looking for, since it did not match any of the value in the array elements, then it means that until the end, since this condition was never true, is found could never be become true. So towards the end, if is found is still equal to false, then output search value couldn't be found. So this is a proper message, and it will only appear if this flag is still false. So this is it. We don't have to actually do anything else. This is the simple search, linear search, serial search, whatever they call it in the SAM. This is the only way searching for it. Okay, so afterwards we have got bubble sort. Since the time is up, we won't have much time for bubble sort. We will uh, understand bubble sort in next class. So that's about it for arrays. I have tried explaining arrays in the first class as much as possible. All three form, single dimension, two dimension, and arrays made up out of those records. We did those. Then we tried solving few of the questions of all three types. Unfortunately, questions of tracing could not be solved. Certainly, we have got restriction of the time. We don't have as much time as we require to follow through every single question of every single sort. But I am sure that I would have laid a solid foundation for the understanding of the arrays at AS level with 9618. Two algorithms, those are attached to arrays, is the serial search and the bubble sort. Serial search, if there is array question, there are 99% chances that that serial search would definitely be included directly or indirectly. If you would have noticed, all the questions that we solved for arrays, most of them had the search built in. Not exactly by the purpose of searching, but for another implementation, but it was there. So, saying that array is the most important part of the syllabus, and it will be used next year as well with more complications at advanced level. But array is not going away anytime soon until you are studying computer science. So let's see. In next class, we will be doing bubble sort, and then the arrays will be over. All right, then. I see you in the next class. Thank you very much. Allah Hafiz.